What kind of man looks at his 9 months pregnant wife, sees the water break at her feet, and decides a road trip with his parents matters more than getting her to the hospital? Stay with me as I unfold this shocking story, and please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. It truly keeps me going. My name is Nia Carter, and I had learned to breathe through disappointment the way swimmers learn to hold their breath underwater. I was 9 months pregnant with our first child. The nursery smelled like talcum and new paint. The crib stood like a promise. My husband, whose name is Terrell, treated promises like outfits. He wore them when it suited him and tossed them on the floor when it did not. We lived in a quiet apartment complex on the east side of Charlotte, close enough to hear the morning buses and the Thursday lawn crew, far enough to pretend we had privacy. Terrell had a comfortable office job in operations at a mid-sized logistics company. He had weekends off. He also had a habit of spending those weekends at his parents' home across town. He said they needed him. I cooked and cleaned. I did the grocery runs with this heavy belly and a smile that felt stapled in place. I pretended that the ache in my back came from the baby and not from the weight of doing everything alone. I kept a blog. It was simple. I posted photos of my breakfasts, the tomatoes in the planter box, the little blue baby socks I folded at night. Friends left kind comments. Those comments braided into a rope I used to pull myself through each day. Terrell said blogging was a waste of time, but he did not notice much unless it displeased him. He liked to say that pregnancy was not a sickness. He said his mother had stayed busy right up to the minute her water broke. The evening before everything broke open, I made turkey meatloaf and washed the kitchen twice. Terrell came home with a face that warned me not to ask questions. When he saw there was no cold beer, he raised his voice. He told me to walk to the corner store. His words slapped the air. I told him that my back hurt and my feet were swollen. He said his mother always believed it was healthy to move around during pregnancy. I put on my shoes because I knew that arguing would only make him crueler. On the way back, I ran into our neighbor, Ms. Joy. She was a soft-spoken black woman with eyes that watched and remembered. We often talked on the sidewalk about azaleas and produce sales. That night, she saw the way I held my belly and asked if I needed help. I said I was fine. I said I would be fine. The next day began with Terrell acting like the night had not happened. He ate. He left his plate in the sink. He said he had a busy day. He said he might not be home for dinner. I cleaned. I napped. I wrote one short blog post about the way the baby kicked when the morning light reached the curtains. I told myself I could live with indifference as long as the child arrived into a room that felt safe. At 6 p.m, Terrell came back and announced a plan. His parents wanted a family trip to the mountains for 2 nights. He said we were going next week. I reminded him that my due date was next week. He told me to stop being dramatic. He said pregnancy was natural. He said his parents had already booked a rental house. I felt the baby shift as if the child recognized a storm. I called my best friend, Amina, and told her I might refuse to go. Before I could draft a firm refusal, Terrell pushed the trip forward a day. He said we would stop by his parents' house first. He gave no space for debate. The morning of the drive, I packed my hospital bag and hid it by the door. I told myself that if I needed to, I would force Terrell to take me to the hospital. In the parking lot, he loaded the trunk and checked his phone. I slid into the passenger seat and felt a warm rush at my ankles. It was not sweat. It rolled down my legs and pooled around my shoes. For a second, I thought the world had tipped and the ocean had come to claim me. My water just broke, I said. I tried to keep my voice calm. We need to go to the hospital now. Terrell looked at the puddle like it was an insult. He opened my door and told me to get out because I would ruin the car seat. He grabbed a towel and started blotting the floor mat as if I were a spill and not his wife. I told him again that we had to go to the hospital. He told me that I could call a ride share or an ambulance. He said he could not let his parents down. Then he closed the door started the engine, and drove away. The sound of the car leaving felt like the end of a chapter. I stood there with my phone shaking in my hand, pain blooming like a hard flower. A voice came from behind me. "Nia, what happened?" It was Ms. Joy, already dialing on her own phone. She called a medical transport service she used for her sister. She stayed with me as I breathed through the first wave of pain. She pressed a cool bottle of water into my palm and told me to squeeze her hand. At the hospital, nurses moved with practiced calm. Ms. Joy stayed until my parents arrived. My mother smoothed my hair and prayed under her breath. My father pressed his palm to my shoulder like he could transfer strength by touch alone. My phone vibrated with calls from Terrell and from his parents. I turned the phone face down. Labor rose and fell like a storm tide. Hours later, our daughter's cry filled the room like a sunrise. I felt relief, grief, and a quiet anger settle into place. When I woke from a long sleep, my parents told me Ms. Joy had gone home to rest. They also told me that Terrell had called in a panic earlier. I did not ask why. I did not want his fear to live next to my daughter's first day of breath. I turned on my phone to share the news with friends. The screen filled with missed calls and messages and a link to a video. The clip showed a man standing by a car while his pregnant wife pleaded from the passenger seat. The date stamp matched that morning. Someone had blurred my face, but Terrell's face was clear. He was yelling. He was pushing me out of the car. The caption called him a coward. The video was already spreading fast. I did not post the link. I did not need to. I sent a single message to my blog readers that the baby had arrived and we were safe. Then I whispered to my sleeping daughter that her mother would never beg for kindness again. The calls came like rain on a metal roof. Terrell first, then his mother, then his father. Terrell left voice messages that leaped from blame to begging. He said I had made him look bad. He said he loved me. He said everything would be fine if I came home. He said his job was on the line. I let the messages stack up like unpaid bills. Ms. Joy returned with a basket of fruit and a smile that looked like armor. She asked if she could speak freely. I told her yes. She told me she had sent the video to a friend who moderates an online community that protects women. That friend had taken great care to hide my identity. The friend also recognized Terrell because he had filmed himself many times at his office for social media. People online had matched the face to the company. Ms. Joy looked at my parents, then back at me. She told me something she had never shared. Her husband, Mr. Anthony, was the chief executive officer of the logistics company that employed Terrell. The words hung in the air. I thought about the day on the sidewalk when Ms. Joy had asked me if I needed help. I thought about how Terrell had never once joined me to greet our neighbors. I thought about the strange way the world circles back to hand you a thread when you are ready to pull. While I was still in the hospital, 2 quiet men in suits met my parents in the hallway. They offered security for my discharge, paid for by Mr. Anthony. Not because of gossip, they said, but because of safety. The video had brought strangers to our doorstep. My parents accepted. On the day I left, Terrell and his parents tried to rush the entrance. The guards did not raise their voices. They simply formed a human wall and led us to the car. I held my daughter and felt the small rise and fall of her chest. That night, Amina visited and placed a folder on my lap. "She is a paralegal," she said. "You have more strength than you think, but strength works best when it is organized." Inside the folder was a list. Hospital intake records, nurse statements about the state I was in when I arrived, the medical transport confirmation, copies of the video files and still images with time stamps, my blog posts with dates that showed how I had carried the house alone, the audio of one call that Terrell made to me in which he told me that I was ruining his vacation and that I could take care of myself. I had pressed record because my anger had finally learned how to plan. We hired an attorney the next morning. He spoke in slow, clear sentences and never raised his voice. He filed for divorce. He requested an emergency order for custody and support. He requested exclusive use of the apartment because the baby needed stability. He asked the court to bar Terrell and his parents from contacting me. The judge read the declarations, watched the clip, and granted temporary orders within the week. Meanwhile, Mr. Anthony initiated a company ethics review. He did not do it for me. He did it because the company had a policy about violence and harassment that applied to off-duty conduct when it endangered family members and reflected on the firm. The review uncovered things I had suspected but never proved. Terrell had used company time to meet a woman he called a friend. He had borrowed a company credit card and filed false expenses that looked like fuel but were restaurant tabs. He had bragged in messages about getting away with everything because his parents would always stand up for him. Human Resources suspended him pending termination. Terrell tried one last time to bargain. He called through the attorney and asked to meet alone. I said that I would meet only with witnesses present and with a recorder on the table. He came with his parents. His mother's voice started sweet and turned sour when I did not soften. She said I was tearing a family apart. She said that a good wife forgives. My mother leaned forward and told her that a good mother protects. The room went very quiet. Terrell promised to change. He tried to touch the baby carrier at my feet, and the guard our attorney had hired stepped between us with a gentle shake of his head. Terrell's face crumpled in the way of boys who are not used to being told no. The court moved faster than anyone expected. The judge awarded me primary custody and ordered support. The judge considered the video, the medical records, and the evidence of neglect. The judge warned Terrell that any further harassment would result in sanctions. The attorney helped me place a claim on a portion of Terrell's severance once the company completed the termination. It was not triumph. It was accountability. The internet storm raged without my voice in it. I did not fan it. I did not comment. I took down every photo of my child. I changed privacy settings on my blog and started writing for myself. I wrote about the day I met Ms. Joy in the hallway carrying a plant wrapped in newspaper. I wrote about the sound my daughter made when she dreamed. I wrote about a life that did not feel like a long hallway with a closed door at the end. 3 months passed. My body learned itself again. My daughter smiled with her whole face. I found part-time work with a local community arts program that taught parents how to make photojournals. Ms. Joy invited us over for dinner on Sundays. Mr. Anthony teased that the baby looked like a manager because she studied every room before she laughed. In time, their son, Marcus, began to stop by with bags of groceries and an easy patience. He never asked about the past. He asked if I needed the heavy things carried upstairs. He asked what music the baby liked. One evening, as summer leaned into fall, my attorney called and told me the civil suit we filed for intentional infliction of emotional distress had settled. The company had finished the termination. Garnishment for support would begin immediately. There would be no more late-night calls. There would be no more surprise visits. I held my daughter by the window and watched the streetlights blink on one by one. The city hummed its low, faithful song. I had imagined revenge would feel like a shout. It felt like a door, closing softly. It felt like peace that did not ask permission to stay. The final twist was not what happened to Terrell. The final twist was the life that unfolded once I finally chose myself. I had believed I needed a man to make a home. The home had been waiting for my yes all along. On my daughter's 6-month birthday, Ms. Joy took a photo of us on her porch. The light was gold and kind. When she handed me the picture, I saw a woman I almost did not recognize. Her eyes were clear. Her mouth was steady. She looked like she knew that sometimes the surest revenge is to live well, speak truth, and let the world watch you refuse to shrink. Thank you for watching till the very end. It truly means a lot, and please subscribe to my channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. Until next time, stay strong, take good care of your heart. Goodbye for now.